Thank you for watching. My name is Glen Morgan. This is We the Governed, and we're talking about how 6 initiatives in November are actually changing your taxes that you might be facing even today. Now, the growing impact of the 6 initiatives on the ballot in November, which we've discussed on the show now many times, is actually becoming increasingly obvious as the Democrats in Washington state simply abandon another really stupid tax increase scheme this legislative session. So let's dig into the details on this and then some other related issues about these initiatives in Washington state right now. Now, first, the decision by the Washington state Democrats last Friday to actually just abandon a proposed property tax increase. And specifically, I'm talking about the much hyped Senate Bill 5770, and I'll link to that down below, which would have lifted the 1% cap on property tax increases that has actually been in place now for many years, and then, of course, triple that size of property tax increase that could be implemented throughout the state. That has officially been abandoned. As Democrat State Senator Jamie Pederson, right here, Jamie the Taxman Pederson, he admitted last Friday that this was just a bridge too far in his party's just eternal, rapacious, kind of insatiable quest for more cash to extract from the voters. Now, Pederson admitted that the initiatives, plus a blowback from approximately 9,500 people who signed in opposition to the tax increase proposal, that kind of convinced his party that maybe they should just abandon the effort this time. Now, this was actually a big deal because the greed of government is truly insatiable. We have endless examples that prove this statement to be true. No matter how much money you shovel into the bonfire of government, it will never be enough. And instead, we find that the bonfire of bloated government usually spreads into the surrounding forests, consuming everything it can touch. Government always wants to convince you that despite all the evidence to the contrary, they want to convince you that they, and only they, can spend your money better than you can spend it. Now, of course, they make this claim every day in Olympia, despite the endless examples of corruption and waste that they basically put on for us as part of the broken system that we have today. I mean, for example, they lose $600 million in the Employment Security Department, supposedly to a Nigerian fraud scheme. Nobody's held accountable, and the people in charge are given promotions, in fact. Then our government, state government, diverts $430 million away from Washington state citizens so that government can subsidize illegal immigrants during Inslee's lockdown world. And when caught, they just shrug. I mean, it's just another day at the office. And our government then shovels hundreds of millions of dollars into the local homeless industrial complex. And the problem, every single aspect of it, crime, the drug addiction, overdoses, cost of housing, druggie camps on the street, every aspect of the crisis that they pretend to want to fix just simply gets worse. Now, this isn't a bug or a defect in government. This is unfortunately a feature of how government operates today under this current regime. Bloated, unaccountable, not transparent, very deceptive, and always incompetent. But then, of course, they expect people to be stupid enough to actually give them more cash so that they can, in turn, continue to fail us and prove why they deserve nothing but the contempt that they have earned. Now, it was good that this tax proposal failed a few days ago, and the 6 initiatives that will be on the ballot are actually a big part of that failure. This is a big deal, actually. Our big government gang is kind of running scared that the voters are going to vote yes on all 6 and reduce the kickback schemes that Inslee has created in recent years. Even in Washington state, $2.3 billion in bonus cash slush funds, that could be going away, and that's going to eliminate a lot of scams, fraud, and kind of waste in the system. So the Dems and the grifter class, who all depend on their tax-funded political patronage, they're running these focus groups, just polling and trying to figure out how do they stop what is so obviously very popular initiatives on the ballot this November. Interestingly, according to people who are actually in those focus groups, these organizations are ignoring the police pursuit, allowing police to chase criminals, and transparency for parent initiatives because these are good policy fixes. And the Democrat and the lefty kind of special interests, they hate those reforms, of course. But those initiatives don't instantly take away the cash that for example, the allowing people to opt out of the long-term care scam, or eliminating Inslee's carbon tax scam. Nobody likes paying high gas prices. And of course, ending the capital tax slush fund scam, all of which will be repealed by voting yes on all 6 initiatives. Now, these 3 initiatives in particular, they're the existential threat to a lot of tax grifters in our state. And this tax grifting class clearly wants the gravy train to kind of keep on running. So the insatiable greed of government never stops. But when the cash flow is threatened, all the swamp creatures come out of the woodwork to fight it. And that's what we're seeing happen right now. This includes the Seattle Times and the Stranger, which I expect these papers to merge soon because there really isn't much difference other than the profanity in their writing. So just for a few local examples, these guys are illustrating and endorsing the campaign in opposition to the initiatives this November. And they're attempting to set the stage for this effort to defeat these initiatives even right now. Just look at this cartoon from Horsey, our local cartoonist in the Seattle Times. Yeah, it is weak, but they are desperate to attack Brian Heywood, of course, for daring to fund the effort in the first place. Since these opponents have no real ability to argue against the policies themselves, mostly because they are difficult to defend in the first place, they then must attack the people who support the initiative, which is, as always, the predictable and repetitive game that they always play. But I want to contrast for you just the cartoonish effort now with previous initiatives that were almost exclusively funded by billionaires in this state to take away, for example, the ability to own firearms and restrict people's ability to defend themselves. I-1639, which is featured here in this cartoon. Horsey and the rest of Animal Farm at the Seattle Times was blind, of course, about the billionaires funding that or any other initiative in the state. They didn't say a word about that, as long as it fit their big tax, kind of high crime, low freedom agendas. Now, of course, this is obvious to everyone who has paid attention to the state, but it is worth noting for the record regardless. Now listen, there's a very good reason why the Democrats in the legislature are afraid to hold a hearing on these initiatives, despite the fact that the state legislature is actually supposed to hold a hearing and have held hearings on dozens of initiatives in the recent and distant past. I mean, it is the law, but they're just not going to follow it. These guys are afraid, though, of any attention on these initiatives because these initiatives actually expose their failure of political leadership and, of course, how much they've broken the trust of the people who actually live here. Now, if you want to come and attend a rally in Olympia on Friday, February 23rd at noon at the Capitol, you can do so, and you can tell our legislators what you think. I'll be there next week as well, and I've been told that Brian Heywood will be there too. However, regardless of whether the Democrat political class listens or not, we're still going to be voting on all 6 of these initiatives this November. Regardless of that vote, the success of getting all 6 initiatives approved and certified is a major accomplishment and will be some of the most important votes any Washingtonian can actually take this November. Now, finally, it can't be denied, the very presence of these initiatives looming over the Democrats in Olympia has clearly driven them to abandon additional reckless tax increase proposals, just like this foolish property tax increase proposal that was abandoned just recently last Friday. Now, we live in interesting times. Many people believe that they can't make a difference, but your vote for these initiatives will obviously send a shockwave through this kind of current political crew. And that's actually why they are melting down. And this is why they are so angry that they must organize expensive and deceptive campaigns against the initiatives. And they are worried that it won't work. And, of course, they want your cash, and they believe that despite all evidence to the contrary, that they, of course, can spend your cash better than you. Conveniently, and not coincidentally, they want to put a lot of your money into their own pockets and the pockets of their friends along the way. And the whole corrupt fiasco that's involved here is at risk right now with these initiatives, and they know it. Now, I know a lot of my viewers help basically volunteer, people like you help volunteer to gather signatures on the initiatives last year. I know you did that, and I saw many of you out there. I volunteered to do my part as well. But we're now in this place because of what you did last year and your willingness to make a difference and to make it happen. It's actually your willingness to show up and make a difference. That's actually why we're here in the first place, even considering these 6 initiatives. So it's actually far bigger than just Brian Heywood's willingness to fund a large part of this effort. It is your work and support that will in turn put these initiatives over the top in November and then change the direction, I think, of the current bloat in government. And that's why we're not facing this kind of foolish and wasteful property tax increase proposal right now. Because the very presence of these initiatives and the nearly almost 10,000 people that decide to push back in public comment. However, as always, to succeed in this effort, we continue to need and be required to show up. We all need to show up in November, and we all need to spread the good word about these initiatives in the meantime, because that's actually how we change direction. That's how we start to fix what is broken, and that is how we can make an impact. Because in the end, as I always say, the future belongs to those who show up.